I've been hauling freight through Nevada for over a decade now. If you've ever driven through that stretch, especially after midnight, you know it's something else. Just miles of nothing but cracked pavement, desert brush, and sky. The radio barely works. No cell signal. No lights except the ones you bring with you. I've always told myself I prefer the solitude. Keeps things simple, quiet, predictable. That night, I was running a load from Reno to Salt Lake City, cutting through the loneliest part of Route 50. It was just past midnight, and I'd been on the road for nearly 9 hours already. My eyes were starting to get that dry, itchy feeling they always do when I've been staring at headlights for too long. I figured I'd push another hour or two before pulling into a turnout to crash in the sleeper cab. The air was thick with silence, the kind that starts to buzz in your ears. Then I saw him. He was walking along the shoulder with his thumb out. A guy in a torn-up green jacket, jeans so dusty they looked gray, and old boots that barely seemed to hold together. His face was shadowed by a hood, but I could see the beard, unkempt and patchy, and something about the way he walked, slow, steady, like he'd been walking forever, just stuck with me. I don't usually pick up hitchhikers. Too many stories, too many risks, but I guess the long hours got to me. Maybe I was just sick of my own voice and the hum of tires. Against my better judgment, I slowed and rolled the truck to a stop. He climbed in without a word, just nodded and shut the door behind him. He smelled like sweat and dry dirt, like someone who'd been sleeping outside for days. But he wasn't rude, just quiet, polite even. After a few miles, he said his name was Mitch and he was headed to Ely. I told him I could take him part of the way, at least past Eureka. He nodded again, said thanks. That was it. For a long time, neither of us said much. He just stared out the windshield while I kept my eyes on the road. The heater hummed low, warm air brushing against the glass. The road stretched out ahead of us like a ribbon disappearing into darkness. Every once in a while, I glanced over at him, trying to get a better look at his face, but he kept it turned toward the window. Something about the way he sat, too still, too calm, made my neck tense up. Maybe an hour passed. Then, out of nowhere, he spoke. "You always sleep in the cab," he said, voice low, almost casual. "Or do you switch it up sometimes?" I didn't answer right away. The question felt off, not just strange, but personal, like he knew something he shouldn't. "Cab," I said after a pause, keeping my voice steady. "Always the cab." He didn't look at me, just nodded like that confirmed something he already knew. Then he said it. "That rest stop near Eureka with the red vending machine. You parked there Tuesday night." I felt my chest tighten. He was right, dead right. I'd stopped there Tuesday after driving straight from Sacramento. I remembered the vending machine because I'd bought a bag of peanuts that got stuck behind the glass. I remember leaving the curtains open because it was too hot in the cab and I thought it didn't matter, out there in the middle of nowhere. How the hell could he have known that? I kept my eyes on the road, heart thudding hard in my chest. I didn't say anything. Didn't want to tip him off that he'd rattled me. He didn't say anything else either. Just sat there with that same blank expression, hands resting on his knees. My mouth was dry. I swallowed and said something about needing fuel. I don't even remember what town we were near, maybe Austin, maybe just before. I pulled into the first gas station I saw, the kind with flickering lights and a rusted sign that looked like it hadn't been touched since the 90s. Told him I needed to top off the tank and use the bathroom. The second he stepped out and shut the door, I hit the lock and threw the truck into gear. My tires squealed as I tore out of the lot. I didn't look back. I drove for 4 hours straight. Didn't stop. Didn't think. My eyes were wide open, every part of me humming with adrenaline. It was like my brain had gone into overdrive, replaying every second with him in the cab, every word he'd said, every silence. The way he looked at the road, the way he knew where I'd been, the way he knew my curtains were open. He'd been watching me. Somewhere out there, on one of those empty stretches of highway, he'd seen my truck. Maybe even closer than that. Maybe while I slept, too dumb to think someone might be nearby. I replayed the thought over and over. Did I hear anything that night? A sound? A shadow moving past the window? Nothing came to mind. I felt sick. I didn't stop until the sun was creeping over the horizon. I found a larger truck stop outside Ely, ironic, considering that's where he said he was going, and pulled into the back lot. Locked every door, shut the curtains tight, and just sat in the driver's seat for what felt like forever, gripping the wheel with both hands. Eventually, I moved to the sleeper cab, but I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling, waiting for the sound of footsteps, for a knock, for anything. But nothing came. The next day, I thought about reporting it. But what would I say? A guy I picked up on the road knew where I'd parked a few nights ago? That's not a crime. That's not even a lead. Hell, I didn't even know his last name. Mitch, just Mitch. That's all I had. I didn't even have a good description. His face never left the shadows long enough for me to really take it in. All I remember clearly are his hands. Calloused, cracked, fingernails full of dirt. I started being more careful after that. Never leave the curtains open anymore, not even when it's 100 degrees in the desert. I started keeping a crowbar tucked next to the seat and a tire iron within reach when I sleep. I stopped picking up hitchhikers altogether. No exceptions. Not even for a stranded family with kids. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm parked off a 2-lane in the middle of nowhere, I still think about him. About how he knew, and about how I didn't see a damn thing. It's not ghosts you have to worry about out here. It's people. Real people. People like Mitch. I was doing an overnight drive from Michigan to Georgia, hauling a load of pallets down I-75. The run wasn't supposed to be stressful. I'd done this route a dozen times, and I knew the stretches of road well enough to drive them in my sleep. The night was quiet, cold for early spring, and the kind of empty that makes your thoughts louder than the engine. I had music on low, sipping weak gas station coffee, just counting the mile markers and the hours till daylight. It was a little after 3 a.m. when I pulled off near Columbus. There was a rest stop I liked. Nothing special, just a long lot with a couple rows of truck spaces, some vending machines, and a single lit bathroom at the far end. I was getting that dry-eyed, itchy skin tired that tells you to get out and walk around before you drift off behind the wheel. So I pulled in, parked between 2 other rigs, shut down the engine, and climbed out. The air was sharp, a little damp, and the only sound was the faint hum of another truck's APU somewhere behind me. I headed to the bathroom, yawning the whole way. Inside, the lights were flickering slightly, and one of the faucets was slowly dripping into a stained porcelain sink. I didn't think much of it. These places were never exactly well kept. I used the toilet, splashed water on my face, looked in the mirror at my bloodshot eyes, and then stepped back outside. The lot was still quiet in that strange way truck stops get in the middle of the night. Just the low hum of diesels idling and the faint breeze moving through the trees out behind the lot. As I made my way back to my truck, I passed a rig that I hadn't noticed when I pulled in. Unit number 7 was written in fading letters on the side of the cab door, the paint underneath rusted and flaking. It was an older model, maybe early 2000s, dark blue but sun-bleached in patches. The headlights were on, casting a dull yellow light across the pavement, but the engine wasn't running. No sign of anyone in the driver's seat. That wasn't exactly rare. Some guys leave their lights on by accident. Some sleep in the back and leave the cab lit for security. But something about this truck rubbed me the wrong way. It looked like it hadn't been washed in years. The side mirrors were cracked, and the air around it felt stiller than the rest of the lot, like the air didn't want to move near it. I glanced at it as I walked by. Nothing moved, just the glow of the headlights and the reflection off the windshield. But as I climbed up into my cab, I looked in my side mirror, and I saw it. Movement. Quick. Just a shadow or figure ducking down behind unit number 7. It wasn't like someone dropping something or stretching. It was deliberate. Fast. I froze halfway into the seat, one foot still on the step. My hand was on the steering wheel, but I wasn't ready to drive off just yet. I stared at the mirror, not blinking. After a few seconds, nothing else happened. No more movement. No door opened or closed. No sound. Just that stillness. Then something changed. I looked straight at the windshield of unit number 7. There was a shape inside, a silhouette. I couldn't make out details, but someone was in there. They moved again, quick, like they didn't want to be seen. Just a duck of the head or a shift of the shoulders, and then they were gone again into the shadows of the cab. I kept watching. Then a hand rose up, slow and steady, and pressed something against the inside of the windshield. Piece of paper, standard white, looked like it had writing on it. I leaned forward, squinting, but I couldn't make out what it said from where I was. So I climbed down. I didn't really think through what I was doing. Maybe I thought someone needed help. Maybe I was just too tired to trust my own eyes. I walked across the lot, keeping my boots quiet on the concrete. The closer I got, the more I felt it, that wrong feeling. Like I wasn't supposed to be there. I got maybe 10 feet away, and the paper was gone. There was no sign of anyone inside the cab. I stood there a moment, trying to see through the windshield, but the glare from the lights made it hard. I stepped around to the side of the trailer. That's when I saw the message. It was sprayed in red paint, sloppy, angry, fresh. The letters were jagged and ran down the side of the white trailer like they'd been sprayed in a rush. You parked in my spot. I stood still. My stomach dropped. I looked around, nobody else moving in the lot. All the other trucks were dark. No doors opening. No voices. Just me and that trailer and the words staring me down like a warning. I backed away. I didn't turn my back on the cab. I just walked backward, slow, one step at a time, until I was near my rig. Then I climbed in fast, shut the door, and locked it. My heart was hammering. I reached for the keys and turned the engine over. The lights on the dash flicked on, and I flicked my own headlights off. I didn't want to draw attention, didn't even check my mirrors. I just put it in gear and rolled out slow, coasting out of the lot with my foot barely on the gas. Once I hit the ramp back to the highway, I accelerated, but I kept the headlights off for a while. Just my marker lights. My palms were sweaty on the wheel. Every few minutes I checked the mirrors, half expecting to see that rusted-out cab pulling onto the road behind me. But nothing followed. I drove the rest of the night straight through. No more stops, no bathroom breaks, no coffee refills. I made it to a way station outside Atlanta just after sunrise and pulled off. I finally let myself breathe. My legs were sore from tensing up so long. Later that morning, I walked around the side of my trailer just to make sure I hadn't imagined everything. Just to be sure. There were no markings, no paint, no spray, nothing on the doors or the sides. But I don't go to that rest stop anymore. I don't even pull off in that area if I can help it. And now, whenever I park at a stop, I always check the spot before I back in. I look around and ask myself, is this really just an empty space? Because someone out there thinks otherwise. Years ago, I was hauling a load of scrap metal through Oklahoma, headed westbound toward Amarillo. I'd been driving for about 11 hours straight, and I was dead tired. The air was thick, the kind of summer night where the heat doesn't break even after sundown. I didn't want to stop at a truck stop. It was late, past 2 a.m., and the next big one was still over an hour out. So when I saw the faded sign for a closed-down gas station a mile ahead, I figured it was good enough for the night. I eased off the highway, followed a gravel road, and pulled into the lot. The place looked like it hadn't pumped gas in 20 years. The canopy was rusted, the sign had no letters on it, and the windows of the little building were boarded up. But the lot was wide open, enough room for me to park the rig without worrying about backing into something. I left the engine idling for a few minutes to let the AC blow cold one last time, then killed it and climbed into the sleeper cab. It was quiet out there. No wind, no bugs, not even the usual crickets you'd expect. I cracked the window a little to let some air in and laid back, trying to rest. I must have dozed off for a bit, because the next thing I remember was waking up to a sound. A knocking, faint but steady. Tap, tap, tap. I sat up, still half asleep, listening. At first, I thought it was the wind against the trailer wall, but it was too rhythmic. It didn't sound like something hitting metal from the side. It sounded like it was coming from beneath me, I opened the cab door, slid out barefoot onto the ground, and stood still. The knocking came again, louder now. I walked slowly around the side of the trailer, holding my flashlight. I'd had run-ins with stray dogs, raccoons, once even a possum tangled in the airlines. Figured it was something like that. I crouched down and flicked the light underneath. And that's when I saw them. Bare feet. Human. They were just sticking out from behind the rear axle, heels on the gravel, toes dirty and scraped up. My stomach dropped. I stood up fast and called out. Just a loud "hey!" But there was no answer. No movement. I walked toward the back of the trailer, shining the light steadily. I slowed down when I got to the tires. That's when I saw her. A girl, maybe 13, 14 at most, curled up tight against the underside of the trailer. She had long, tangled hair, no shoes, just a big t-shirt that looked like it hadn't been washed in weeks. Her eyes were wide and locked onto mine, like she didn't know if I was friend or threat. I didn't know what to say. Before I could think of anything, she whispered something. I couldn't hear it at first. I had to lean in closer. She said, "He's coming. Please don't tell him I'm here." My body went cold. That kind of cold that doesn't come from outside, it's something deeper. I looked around quickly, sweeping the flashlight toward the edges of the lot. The place was surrounded by tall grass and a line of trees about 30 yards back. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, not close but moving fast, through the brush. I snapped the light in that direction, but I couldn't see anything, just the shifting black between the trees. I didn't ask questions. I reached under, grabbed her by the arm, and pulled her out. She didn't fight me. She just stumbled a little as I lifted her up and practically shoved her toward the cab. I opened the passenger door and got her inside. She curled up tight against the far door, eyes wide, not saying a word. I jumped into the driver's seat, fired the engine, and threw it into gear. I didn't even look back. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear the engine roar. I turned the truck around and bounced out of the gravel lot, back onto the road. I didn't stop driving until I hit the next town, which was about 30 minutes out. Felt like 3 hours. I pulled into the parking lot of a diner that was just starting to open for the morning. I parked the rig and sat there for a second, breathing heavy. She was still curled up, staring at the glove box. I could see in the rearview mirror that my hands were shaking. Inside the diner, I found the manager and asked if I could use the phone. I called the cops, told them what happened, gave the exact location of the gas station, and stayed on the line until a cruiser showed up. They took her in gently, wrapped her in a blanket someone at the diner had found in a back closet. I gave my statement. They asked a lot of questions. I answered what I could. I asked the officer quietly what would happen to her. He just looked at me for a second and said, "You probably saved her life tonight." A few days later, I got a call from one of the investigators. They'd looked into it. The girl had run away from a truck stop 2 states over, near Arkansas. She'd escaped a man who'd been picking up runaways, hitchhikers, and kids with nowhere to go. He'd been moving them along the interstates, keeping them hidden in trailers and back rooms at small-town motels. The kind of guy who knew how to disappear. They caught him a week later. He was staying at a cheap motel just off I-40, not far from where I found her. When they got him, he had 2 more kids with him. I don't know what happened to the girl after that. I didn't ask. Figured she had enough people digging into her life. I just hoped she ended up somewhere safe, somewhere quiet. I thought about her a lot on the road after that, especially when I'd park overnight. I'd check under the trailer every time, not because I was scared, because I hoped I'd never find anything like that again. It was just after 1 a.m., and I was hauling a load of farm equipment across Arizona, heading east toward New Mexico. The highway was dead quiet, nothing but blacktop stretching for miles with scrub brush on both sides and an endless desert sky above. My CB radio had gone silent about 45 minutes earlier, and I hadn't seen a single car or truck since. Just me, the road, and the steady hum of my engine. The night air outside was still and dry. My headlights cut through the darkness like knives, illuminating patches of cracked asphalt and the occasional coyote crossing in the distance. I'd been driving straight for hours, too wired on coffee to pull over, too tired to keep my mind from wandering. That stretch of highway always gave me a weird feeling. No cell signal, no towns for miles, just open nothing. Then I saw the lights. Flashing blue and red filled my mirrors suddenly, bouncing off the side of my trailer. At first, I thought maybe I was finally seeing another vehicle, maybe even getting pulled over for a tail light or something. I slowed and eased over to the shoulder. The lights kept flashing as I stopped completely, but right away something felt wrong. There wasn't a siren, just the lights. And the vehicle behind me wasn't a marked patrol car. It was a black SUV, dusty and unmarked, with the lights suction cupped to the roof like some kind of aftermarket setup. No logos, no decals, just lights. My gut twisted a little. I kept the engine running and watched the side mirror. The SUV's door opened, and a man stepped out. He looked like he could have been law enforcement. Jeans, boots, a sheriff-style brown jacket. But there was no visible badge, no body cam, no utility belt, nothing that marked him as legit. He walked toward me slowly, kind of stiff. His hands were twitchy. He kept glancing over his shoulder toward the tree line across the road. I couldn't explain why, but something about the way he moved, it was like he was trying to act calm and controlled but couldn't quite pull it off. He came up to my window, and I rolled it down halfway. My hand hovered near the door lock switch just in case. He didn't say much, just motioned for my license and DOT papers. I reached toward my glove box slowly, buying time. I looked him over in the mirror. That's when I saw it. His jacket pocket was wide open, and inside was a roll of duct tape, and sticking just above it, the black handle of what looked like a fixed blade knife. Not something you'd expect on a cop, at least not one making a routine stop. He noticed me looking. He shifted slightly to block my view and told me again to get the papers. His tone wasn't aggressive, but it had an edge, like someone trying not to lose patience. And all the while, he kept glancing nervously at the tree line. Not just a quick check, either. It was like he was waiting for something, or someone. That's when I knew this wasn't right. I told him I had to get the papers from the back, that they were in a binder behind the seats. He nodded and stepped back, one hand resting near the pocket with the knife. I slowly rolled up the window. As soon as it clicked shut, I hit the lock button, dropped the truck into gear, and floored it. The tires kicked gravel as I pulled out, and the trailer wobbled a bit before catching straight. I didn't look back. I didn't check the mirror. I just drove. My heart was pounding, hands gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I kept expecting gunshots or a pursuit, but nothing came. No headlights in the mirror. No sign of him following. Just the highway stretching ahead, and the silence of the desert pressing in on all sides. I didn't let off the gas for a long time. Eventually, after what felt like forever, but was probably only 20 minutes, I saw signs for a way station up ahead. The place looked lit up like a Christmas tree, big halogens, orange safety cones, real patrol cars parked outside. I pulled in fast and parked awkwardly near the office building. My legs were shaking when I climbed out of the cab. Inside, 2 uniformed state troopers were sitting at a desk drinking coffee. They looked up when I came in. I must have looked like hell because one of them stood up right away and asked if I was okay. I told them everything, where I was, what time it happened, what the man looked like, the SUV, the fake lights, the knife, the duct tape. One of the officers got real serious, grabbed a notepad, and started taking notes. The other made a call on the radio. They checked with dispatch and confirmed there were no officers patrolling that area of highway at that time. None. They didn't even have anyone assigned to that stretch after 10 p.m. because it was supposed to be low risk. No traffic, no incidents. They said they'd been getting strange reports lately from truckers. Unmarked vehicles, suspicious stops, people trying to impersonate officers. Nothing had come of it yet, but they were definitely concerned now. They walked out to check my rig, just to make sure I hadn't been followed. One of them checked the trailer, the other took down the plate numbers. I stayed close, hands still trembling, trying to focus on the quiet sounds of the station instead of what I just escaped. They offered to let me rest there for a while, even said I could call someone if I needed to, but I just wanted to get moving again. The adrenaline was wearing off, and in its place was a cold, creeping feeling, like I'd been inches from something awful and barely got away. I thought about that guy a lot afterward. Who he was, what he was doing out there, the duct tape, the knife, the fake lights, the way he kept looking at the trees like someone or something was watching him or maybe waiting to help him. It made my skin crawl. What would have happened if I'd stepped out of the cab? If I'd gone around back to get the papers? If I hadn't locked the door fast enough? Would he have pulled the knife right there? Or maybe he wasn't alone. Maybe whoever he kept looking at in the trees was going to join in once I stepped away from the cab. I don't know. I don't want to know. I filed a full report the next day at the next state trooper post. They said they'd forward everything to the proper offices. I never heard back. No follow-up. No arrests. No updates. Just silence. Every time I drive that stretch now, I keep my doors locked, my eyes peeled, and my documents right up front, where I don't have to move from my seat. I haven't seen that SUV again, but that night stuck with me. It changed how I look at the road, especially at night, especially in places where help is far away. It reminded me that not everything dangerous on the road is hiding in the shadows. Sometimes it's standing right in front of you, pretending to protect and serve. I was hauling a load of construction gear west out of Denver, heading through the Rockies on a long overnight run. The job was supposed to be simple. Pick up at 5 p.m., drop off in Salt Lake the next morning. Nothing unusual. I'd done this route plenty of times before. It's a lonely stretch, especially once you get out past Idaho Springs. The road winds hard through the mountains, 2-lane in most places, with barely any shoulder and just endless drop-offs on one side, rock walls on the other. After a certain point, the radio gives up and your phone turns into a brick. The only sound is your engine and the tires chewing up the road. It was cold that night, colder than usual for early fall. The kind of cold that sinks into the cab even with the heat blasting. I had my thermos full of black coffee, the dash lights dimmed low, and nothing ahead of me but darkness and switchbacks. The clock on the dash read 2:07 a.m. I remember because I just glanced at it before hitting another sharp turn, the kind where you slow almost to a crawl or risk sliding right into the guardrail or off the edge if you're unlucky. That's when I saw him, just a quick flash of movement on the shoulder ahead. At first I thought it was an animal, but as I rolled closer, I realized it was a person. Looked like a man standing on the narrow gravel shoulder. He was facing the road, but not directly looking at me. No flashlight. No visible car nearby, just standing there like he'd been dropped out of the sky. I slowed down. Habit, I guess. I never pick up hitchhikers, especially not out there. Too many stories, too many variables. I wasn't about to stop, but I did ease off the throttle and rolled by slow, trying to get a good look. He had a jacket on, torn and dirty, and jeans that looked stiff from mud or something worse, but I couldn't see his face. Just the hood pulled up and his left hand raised, thumb barely sticking out. I rolled past him and checked my mirror. That's when I saw the other movement. Something quick, low, right along the side of the trailer. I looked again, squinting at the convex mirror mounted under the main one, the one that shows your trailer's blind spots. Clear as day, I saw someone ducking down low between the cab and the front of the trailer. Not the guy I passed, this one moved too fast. My first thought was that it was a setup. Maybe two of them, maybe more, trying to jack the rig or ride underneath. I hit the brakes, harder than I meant to. The whole rig shuddered and hissed, the trailer groaning slightly as it settled. I put the hazards on, grabbed my flashlight from the side pocket, and got out into the freezing air. The mountain was dead silent except for the tick of my engine cooling and the wind rustling through pine. I walked around the front first, scanning the shoulder and the trees nearby. Nothing but darkness. I walked the whole length of the trailer, light in my left hand, the other holding the small crowbar I keep wedged in the cab door. I checked the undercarriage, peered under the axles, even climbed up a bit to shine the light over the fifth wheel. Nothing. Nobody. No sign of anyone at all. I stood there a moment, my breath fogging in front of me. My spine was tight, stomach flipping with that low, dull panic you get when something doesn't add up. I walked back to the driver's side and opened the cab door, climbed back in, locked it, then fired the engine back up. Still nothing on the road behind me, just winding blacktop and a few reflectors blinking in the dark. I leaned forward and hit play on the dash cam just to check. It records in a loop, night vision kicks in after dark. The footage rolled back about 5 minutes. The guy standing on the shoulder was there. I paused it and zoomed in. His face was just shadow, hood drawn tight. I scrubbed forward and saw the moment I passed him. Then I saw it, right at the edge of the screen, as the truck passed the guy. A figure darted from the tree line, crouched low, almost crawling, and disappeared into the space between my cab and trailer. He was fast, too fast. I rewound it twice just to be sure. He had a coat on, but no hood. Short hair. Looked like he was wearing gloves. He kept low, stayed close to the truck. Not just someone running across the road. This guy meant to get on. I froze the frame and stared at it. My cab light buzzed faintly above me. I felt my stomach drop. I could still hear the tick-tick of the engine cooling and the distant groan of a wind gust pushing through the canyon. I tried to send the clip to my dispatcher. No signal. Not even a single bar. I was out of luck until I hit cell range again, which wouldn't be for at least 30 or 40 miles. I kept checking the mirrors after that. Every turn, every bump, every reflection in the rear glass made me twitch. I even called out once or twice, hoping I was just losing my mind. But I didn't hear or see anything the rest of the way. When I finally hit the station in Rifle, I parked near the fuel pumps and went to check the footage again. I wanted to show it to someone, anyone, but when I opened the file, it was gone. Or rather, it was there but corrupted. Just a few seconds of gray static where the footage had been. The rest of the file was normal except that one stretch. All it showed was digital snow and a high-pitched whine like bad tape. I didn't say anything, just stood there staring at the screen like it owed me an explanation. I finished the run and made my drop on time, but I didn't take that route again for months. I kept driving, kept working, but I started doing little things different. I checked my fifth wheel lock more often. I started putting a strip of duct tape across the door seam when I parked, so I'd know if someone opened it. I rigged a second dash cam in the sleeper. But most of all, I started watching that side mirror. Not just checking it, watching it. Obsessively, sometimes. I still do. Doesn't matter if I'm in the desert, in a city, in daylight. I glance at it every few seconds like clockwork. Looking for movement. Looking for shapes that shouldn't be there. Sometimes I wonder if it was just a drifter trying to hitch a ride or hide out. Maybe he thought I'd never notice. Maybe he bailed out when I stopped and ran off into the woods. Maybe. But that doesn't explain how he moved that fast, how he knew to duck low and stay in my blind spot. Doesn't explain the footage vanishing like it never happened. No ghosts, no shadows in the fog. Just a man who shouldn't have been there, and me driving with my eyes always locked on that mirror, waiting for a shape to crawl out of the dark again.